the Australian Water Resources Council instituted a program of research called the Centres of Concentration. There were 12 centres allocated. Our Australian Water Quality Centre won one in collaboration with Adelaide Uni's Wade Institute, Soil Science Department, and Malcolm Oates was the Prof, and out at Mawson Lakes in the Chemical Technology group. And it was a pretty modest sum of money, but and went for only 3 to 4 years. But it was an amazing outcome. The things that we did with that little bit of dough, collaborating with the academics and the industry science group, and that's the first time that had happened, and it was really, really productive. And so it made us all realise that this was the way to go for the future. Then, just as that was running out, the federal government announced the CRC program, and I thought, well, we're going to have a go at this. And it was in that process that I contacted John Langford, because he had just been appointed to head up the new Water Services Association. So the two organisations more or less started at similar times. And he was a very strong contributor and a very strong supporter of us as we developed the thing. The fact that the industry was preparing itself for privatisation, and there wasn't any real consideration being given to the core business, which was, in my opinion, which was the provision of safe drinking water and wastewater services, but the safe drinking water side of things. And so the CRC scheme was an ideal opportunity to provide some sort of national science team to underpin the development of national drinking water guidelines that would require the industry, if it was privatised, to comply with the best standards across the world. Even when we were successful in the early stages and were starting to think about things like our strategic plan and our mission statement, there was probably half of the industry people that were involved were there because of parochial reasons. Some of them were committed, like the Melbourne Water were definitely very supportive, and that was probably the John Langford influence and the Water Services Association. But some of them were there only because it might just succeed, and if it did, they didn't want to be on the outer, and so they had to be in. But they, for example, there's a big debate over our mission statement. There were two options on the table. The people who were living in the past, I think, were wanting to say that the mission should be to produce adequate quality water at the lowest cost possible. And those of us who wanted to move ahead were wanting to assist the water industry in producing high quality water at an affordable price, and trying to provide research that would enable really good outcomes to be achieved, but at an affordable, practical level. And that was the one that was accepted in the end. In fact, our chair, Nancy Millis, who was a major contributor, was the one who pushed it across when she said, look, at my stage of life, if you lot are going to agree with just a mediocre sort of target, he said, I haven't got time to sit around here worrying about that sort of stuff. I'm out of here. So that made them all flip across and go for the more aspirational mission statement. On a non-technical level, we became very well known all around the industry when people didn't even know about the CRC system when we first got started. And in the end, we were the ones to immediately go to if there was an issue. And I think we were a bit of a bonding mechanism for the industry. Both the CRC and the Water Services Association brought a lot of CEOs from water utilities together regularly for discussions about what they were actually doing, which is providing water supplies. And instead of thinking about international exchange rates and business plans and stuff like that, which a lot of these people had been used to doing. And so I think that was a good thing, and we were regarded by internationals as the leading water quality group in Australia in a very short time, and I think that was great. On the technical side though, bringing the health people, public health people, in to work with water technology folks was a first internationally, and it gave me a chance to infiltrate the National Health and Medical Research Council's water quality process, which develops the national drinking water guidelines. And so the regulatory program that we had changed our national drinking water guidelines from a load of targets that you had hoped to achieve that were you wouldn't know whether you were doing any good until you failed, which is not to crash hot when the outcome can be a serious health issue, to a risk-based system that forced the industry to manage the water from its source right down through and into the distribution system and to the customer. And so it's a preventative process, and more or less is done to guarantee that the water is always being managed properly. And that water quality framework has been now 15 years in our drinking water system, and the states force the utilities through their licensing system to use it. The World Health Organization almost copied it completely, word for word, into the international scheme, and it's being used all around the world for improving drinking water systems in a lot of developing countries as well as advanced countries. It would be saving thousands of lives a year around the world now. European Commission brought it in for the European system as well. So all of that came from Australia and out of that centre, and I think that's a pretty good thing. The CRC system was developed to provide a period of time when industry could work with researchers to tackle their challenges and opportunities together. And if it didn't work, well, okay, you park company and go off and do something different. But if it did work, then the idea was that the industry would then fund the program from then on. And I thought that was a good concept, and our water industry is a highly profitable enterprise for its government owners mostly, and I don't see any need. 7 years, it might seem a long time at the beginning, but it's not actually a long time to do the sorts of things that people expect of a CRC. And so I didn't have any problem with going for a second round, which we did successfully do. But after that, after 11, 12, 13 years of working together, if the industry can't work out that that's been an absolute goldmine for them in terms of taking water from a controversial issue to a pretty safe spot that it's at now, if they can't work that out and see that it's worth pursuing that in the long term and funding it, then that we didn't deserve to be in the dole queue of the federal government system, in my opinion. So we put a pretty firm case to the board, and eventually, and did all the preparatory work for a strategy for the future. And eventually that was successful. And I think we're still the only CRC out of the now probably 200 or so that's been in existence that's actually transferred totally from the CRC to an industry-funded centre, and I'm quite proud of that. She was a very remarkable person for someone who was chair from when she was about 82 years old till about 91, I think. And yet she was one of the biggest contributors to the management and governance process. It's remarkable.